You are listening to Tomorrow's Legends with Havoc and Shadowcat. They ought to be talking about X-Men 97, led by me, Magneto. But I suppose it's acceptable if they deign to speak of some other people.
"30 years ago, one of the greatest animated series of all time went off the air. But now it's returning to our screens, and the mutants will rise again. X-Men 97 continues the story of Wolverine, Rogue, Storm, Cyclops, Jean Grey, and more as they try to move forward from the loss of their leader, Professor Charles Xavier. Join Havoc and Shadowcat on this new adventure as they bring you the stories of X-Men 97. This is Tomorrow's Legends.
Yes, welcome fellow mutants to a bonus episode for our coverage of X-Men 97. Just when you thought we were going to go back to traveling in the time stream, waiting for who knows how long for season 2, we are back and we got a special surprise for you today. As we are lucky enough to be welcoming to the show the voice of Bishop, Isaac Robinson Smith, and I am the super excited today, Havoc.
And I am the also excited and unfazed Shadowcat.
So just a quick reminder for everybody that's new to the show, this is one of the shows on the Cybercast Network, Tomorrow's Legends, who just finished their X-Men coverage. We are also eagerly awaiting Superman and Lois, the final season that comes later this fall. We also have the Mandalore podcast, which is waiting eagerly to start their Acolyte coverage, and that begins tomorrow, so get watching your Star Wars, and then dive into DC, where they're currently talking about Dead Boy Detectives, I believe, getting into the first few episodes of that, as well as Cybercast and Cyber Movie Review. Those are other bonus shows on the network. So, without further ado, let us welcome to the show Mr. Isaac Robinson Smith. Thank you for being with us.
Hey, that intro was killer. That was so much fun. I got excited again. I was like, oh, the show is so... I'm such a huge fan for it, so thanks for creating that. I loved hearing Matt on that. That's fantastic. Everything was great.
Great. Well, yeah, thanks for hearing that. He did that for us at one of the Comic-Cons that we went to see.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah,
wow.
That was really cool.
What a guy.
So, yeah, what a guy. So we're just so happy to have you here, getting to interview and talk to you about X-Men 97. We've loved this show so much all season long. I mean, we've waited for years for this show to come back. And, I mean, nobody ever knew if it was going to come back, right? But it did come back, and it came back with a bang, because holy cow, these episodes were dramatic. The writing is top-notch. Your guys' voice acting, out of the park. Just amazing.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, it's been amazing for us, too, so thank you for saying all that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So with this discussion, we're just going to play it loose. We're going to have some fun, and just if we go off on rants and tangents about whatever we're going to nerd out towards X-Men, we're not going to worry about that.
Great.
Just keep on talking.
Cool.
All right. So to open the discussion, I'd love to hear what your path was to voice acting. If that was something that you had planned all along and wanted to get into, or was it kind of like a chance opportunity and you're like, man, I should just try this because it landed in your lap?
Yeah, you know what? It felt very... it's a really good question. It didn't feel like it was really a plan initially, but afterward, when I saw the pieces and how they come together, I was like, oh, I understand why this had to happen to make this happen. You know how, like, retroactively you see, like, why things go on in your life, even if you don't understand at the time, but then later they make sense. That's sort of what happened with this job, which I didn't even think this was a job. Like, I started imitating voices when I was 2 years old. Like, my mom will tell stories, and I've talked about before how, like, I imitated stuff at a very young age, and I don't really know why it began. I've always been absolutely enamored with anything having to do with sound or music or sound effects or voices, any of that stuff, just anything aural as a kid, I was immediately drawn to. Like, I remember I was in preschool. I don't know why I still have this memory, but I was in preschool. I was, very young child. And there was this old rickety upright piano in like it was like a converted house they turned into a preschool. And so in like the living room area, there was this old rickety piano. And I remember I would always go up to it and just like hit the keys randomly. because I was fascinated by the notion that if you pushed this button, this sound came out, and this is different. So that was like my initial intro into like, what is music? Like I have to know more.
Yeah.
And so like that sort of translated into my love of listening to music and appreciating it, and then that moved into singing as a kid. There was a definite 2-year period in there where my brother and I, according to my mom, would imitate Baby Gonzo from the Muppet Babies, if anybody remembers that show.
Yes.
Muppet
So,
Babies,
you know, that was like a staple of quality viewing in my house. And so anything that I could watch cartoon-wise was great. And then I sort of took that and ran with it as a storyteller. I'm very lucky that my mom was a theater actor for a long time and taught theater. And so all of us kids that she had, I have 3 other siblings, we all sort of had a center in the theatrical arts. And so there was no pushback as far as pursuing that as a career and jumping into that. You know, I grew up listening to musicals in the car going to Yosemite every year. And so like just theater was like our whole life. And so eventually I kind of took that idea of storytelling, and my brother and I would just make up our own episodes of like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon and all these things from the 90s that we loved. And so eventually I just got to a point where I was just doing voice imitations all the time, and I would do them with my brother, and we would make up stories, and it was fun. And then in high school, I had it was an interesting high school because it was a performing arts high school, so there was a lot of different kinds of minds there, which was really amazing. But I started to get to know friends by doing magic as a kid. I was the magic guy in high school, which is, you know, super super cool for that high school. I don't know about other schools, but like at my high school, people dug it.
I love magic.
And then
that's great.
I know. David Copperfield's hero of mine when I was a kid. And then for whatever reason, in fact, magic is the reason I got into performing, because I like realized the impact of doing something for someone else and having them have a reaction of awe or inspiration or being taken away from reality for just a second for this illusion. I was like, that's cool. I want to do that for other people. So I kind of remembered that.
Wow.
And but in high school, for whatever reason, somebody was talking about an episode of SpongeBob, and I sort of sheepishly said, you know, I could do some impressions from the show, not really knowing what that would mean. And I started to do them for my friends, and they all started laughing, not at me, but like because of what I was creating, the character voices. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. I don't know what this is, but this feels like something bigger than what it appears. And so I then became like the guy that did voices at high school, which is pretty cool. And I did a lot of little projects for friends, and I did my own stuff. And then the real turning point for me, because at that point it was just like a hobby. It was just like, oh, I'm just doing this for fun, and I enjoy what my friends say, and I have a lot of fun imitating voices that they know, and you know, I love the cartoons that I'm watching. But none of it connected as like this thing that I'm doing is a job that people have. Like I knew that humans did the voices, but it didn't make sense that that was something that was a viable way to earn a living, until I watched an episode of probably still my favorite interview show of all time for actors, Inside the Actors Studio with James Lipton. And he did an episode of the Simpsons cast. He interviewed them, and and at that moment when I saw those people doing those voices, everything kind of coalesced in this amazing moment. I was like, oh, everything that I love, it's voices, and it's music, and it's performance, and it's theater, and it's collaborating with other people. Everything was in this one job, and until I saw that interview, I didn't know that. And so that was 16 years ago, and I haven't looked back since. So that is why I'm in voiceover. It's because everything that I love, I saw in these people that I admire so much, and I was like, I want to do that. And so it was a very long story long. That's how I got into
No,
doing it.
That's fascinating, because you had all this early training that you didn't realize was preparing you for that shining moment.
Exactly. I had no idea, but looking back, it made a lot of sense. But that's how it all started.
Wow, fantastic!
Right.
That's a great path to have to get into it. And now the sky's the limits, right?
yeah, I hope so. Yeah. My goal is just to stay gainfully employed. That's really all I can want.
Well, I mean, looking at your IMDb credits, I mean, you're in Voltron and Final Fantasy. You've done there's a whole ton of things you've been doing that you've been part of.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're just wherever you can go and get practice and continuing your craft.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's
Thank
cool.
you.
I mean, I love hearing that, because it's usually like you start out as a fan and then you make your way kind of into those spaces to be able to tell those stories too, and it's just kind of a full circle moment. I feel like for a lot of us, it's kind of I have a film degree, and I've worked kind of on the peripheral of that, and that's kind of the same reason of like I love this world so much and what it can do for other people.
Yeah.
Like what it did for me, I wanted to kind of pass that on to and be able to tell those stories.
Exactly. And I think the authenticity of the joy that voice actors have is something that I really value being part of this industry, because there's no one that I work with or know that's like, yeah, I just kind of do this because, I have to. It's like, no, everybody like loves this work. And I was kind of reminded of people that really, truly enjoy it are the people that stick around for a long time. I went to see a event for Ahsoka, going away from X-Men, but there was an Ahsoka event and they had a lot of the stars there. And one of the people that I connected to the most was Doug Chiang, who's basically been designing Star Wars since 1995. And the way he talked about, he's been at Lucasfilm for almost 30 years, but the way that he approached talking about his work, it was like he was an 8-year-old that just got hired at the company yesterday. That's the energy that he had. And I was like, that's the thing that I want to emulate. Like that, I don't want to lose whatever that is, whatever he's giving. I was like, oh yeah, that's such a good reminder of like, find the joy and it will continue to give you what you need. So.
And it's like staying young at heart. That's how you find so much enjoyment in life. Like just be a kid, just continue to play.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
yeah.
Before we dive too deep into X-Men, this is kind of a selfish question because I came up in kind of the same way. Yeah. But I know that you worked in the Disney parks as a character host. You did various shows, Universal.
Yeah.
You've also done voice matching and things for Disney Imagineering. So my first job was at a theme park.
Great.
So it wasn't Hershey Park in Pennsylvania.
I always wanted to go to Hershey Park. I've seen videos. I'm like, this place is great. I love chocolate. The rides seem awesome. I want to go.
Yes, I am a lifelong fan. So, so I worked in the theaters, not as an entertainer, but on the outside, doing all the show counting and things of that nature.
Right.
And then my last year I worked there before I graduated college. I was a costume character, and that was one of the most fun jobs I've had.
That's so great.
I go back. I returned once they started doing their Haunt event, and I've done scare acting for the past 3 years. So I'm going into my third season this year. But so from theme park nerd to possibly other theme park nerd, just kind of if you can talk about those jobs that you had and kind of how that helped become the actor that you are now.
That's a really great question. Also, kudos to you for doing a horror event, because I did horror nights for 4.5 years, and that's no joke. Like the people that are out there give it every year. So thank you for bringing your full self to a job like that. It's those jobs. I don't think that I would be where I am had I not had those shows that I did. And selfishly, I came to Southern California because I wanted to be near Disneyland. So you're talking about potential theme park nerd. I'm 100% a theme park nerd. I've been a huge fan of Disneyland since I can remember. Like that's like another section of my brain is I have a huge amount of love for Disneyland history and why the company was, how it was made and all that stuff. So like the Imagineering story blew my mind when I saw it on Disney Plus for the first time. But the ways that the shows gave me a space to hone crafts in a way that I wasn't even like thinking about was really unique. Like, for example, at Universal, I did, like you said, a bunch of shows there, and a lot of them were improv heavy roles. So like I did, I was a performer at the Transformers for a couple of years, doing voices, and I was a Who for Grinchmas in 2014. Yes. I did, there's other things I'm blanking on right now. I worked in Wizarding World of Harry Potter for a little while as a performer, but all of that stuff and I was also a tour guide for about two and a half years on the tram, and then I did the VIP experience as well. But all of those roles, and I'll get to Disneyland in a second because it's a whole other piece of it too. All of those roles really helped me cut my teeth with really incredible people. Like, when I love the notion that when you work with somebody that's better than you, you're automatically getting better yourself. That was definitely the case. I was working with extremely high quality veterans of performance and improv and theatrical experience while I was at Universal, and I was like finding my way through that path, and it just built me up to a place where I felt more confident about my performance, more confident about my interaction with people, more confident about how to be with other people. That was a huge lesson that I've taken into my own career. And also, I'm just a huge fan of the parks themselves. Like working at Universal, our IDs allowed us to go on the back lot and walk around whenever we wanted. So I would take, jogs down Courthouse Square and listen to Johnny Be Good on my days off and things like that. And but that was just, it was so cool because it reminded me of how important it was to continue to learn while pursuing what I was learning in voiceover. And on the Disneyland side of it, there were more, there were things that were also being taught a lot of different things, like how to emotionally connect to people. I think Universal and Disneyland, but there were specific Disneyland memories that I have that I loved, like when I was in the Dapper Dans of Disneyland for about 4.5 years, and the choices that we had to make when we were in our sets that included no structure, because there were 2 sets, at least when I did it, where there were you just go out there and you sing songs, and the lead, which is my role, would kind of decide the transitions and how to interact with people and talking to the other guys and figuring out, what we would say in between songs.
Yeah. And
that was fun because you're basically creating a full new, fresh show depending on what the audience is giving you and what you're feeling and what the environment is. And none of that can be, I think there's no better way to be taught all of those skills than wrapped up into those positions that I had. But even more so was the networking that happened as a result of that. Like, I got to know a lot of people there, which led to a lot of voiceover roles that I did for the parks subsequently. But yeah, the thesis is that the way that I got to interact with people and learn how to be a person that wanted to do this, but also connect with people in a way that helped everyone, I learned because I worked in a theme park for 11 years. And I just got to know so many thousands of people from all over the world because of it. And I could go on and on about that, but I hope that answers your question. I don't know if I did, but
no, absolutely.
I mean, the fact that you said it got you to practice your emotional connection, because there's a lot of people that come there and they see these Disney characters come to life.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's a dream for them come true. So you're kind of providing that experience for them, that whatever characters you're playing. So you have to be able to connect emotionally to them and see what it is they're reacting to. And
the thing that I've heard a lot in voiceover is a lot of the best ones have some sort of theater grounding or theater development they've gone through, just because that really helps because when you're doing a voiceover job, you don't get the audience and you don't get the music and the surrounding settings or a director. Right. I mean, you do get a director, but sometimes you're not even with other people entirely. You're alone in your own studio with people on Zoom or whatever. And so to create that feeling of full immersion with a moment just by yourself, I think it helped that I had that feeling over and over and over again in person with all these people and these audiences and these shows, to then be like, okay, that I remember that, I have to create that again for the animated world and for the audiences that will be watching it, that I don't necessarily know who they are, what they're responding to or what they're thinking, but I know that this will have an effect on someone and I need to provide that. So you're right in that regard.
Very cool. Since you're such a fan of theme parks, have you ever been to Canada's Wonderland?
No, I have not. There's so many that I need to visit.
Because that's where I am. I'm up in Canada, so I used to have. Cool. I used to get a summer pass and go every year. So.
Oh, that's great.
It's Canada's biggest one. It's basically Canada's rival to Disneyland. So.
Oh, I gotta come see it. That's great. That's really cool.
So going back to X-Men for a second here, I was doing a little bit of research, and I see that you grew up watching X-Men, the original, with your siblings, and used to love that. So I was curious, other than watching the cartoon, how big of a fan of X-Men were you before auditioning for the show? And was Bishop always the one that you were trying for, or did you just audition openly and they gave you that role?
That's a good question. X-Men was sort of it's hard to put it into words. I feel like my X-Men fandom was sort of at the zeitgeist level. I guess it wasn't completely imbued in me I'm a huge X-Men fanatic. It was definitely something I really enjoyed, but it wasn't something that I really knew a ton about. Growing up, I mean, I knew about it growing up because I watched the show and everything. My gateway into Marvel was the 2002 Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire. That was the thing that really changed everything for me. It came at a point in my life where I needed it to happen. I was 12, and just everything about it kind of it reminded me of some kind of it was the coolest the coolest fantasy that I had seen at that point, just because of how the characters were and how I related to related to Peter Parker, and just the way that it was written, and then the research I did on the character and why Peter was created and why Spider-Man was around. Just so many things that were fascinating to me. So that really drew me into the Marvel world. And then, of course, I watched and connected with my friends on the X-Men films, actually, the live action. And then X-Men sort of became dormant for a while. You know, it's still back there. I still loved it. I still appreciated it. But when this opportunity came around, I didn't really expect to feel this way, but and this has been said by a few of the other actors, that when we got the audition information, it wasn't something that was blatantly said, this is X-Men and it's coming back. You know, it was under a pseudonym and the characters were all had different things.
As usual.
Yeah, as always, because, you know, and NDAs and all that, and, you know, it being Marvel, I understand they want to protect that. But once I figured out that that's what was happening, I don't know, I can't explain it, but it was like there's this feeling I had that was like, oh, this is very significant. Like this feels like something is going to be. I couldn't believe that I was reading the names that I was reading again, because once I got past the false, you know, names and all that, and I could see the content of what the scripts and the auditions were actually saying, I was like, oh man, like, this is really X-Men again. Like I couldn't believe it. And so Bishop was not someone I really knew about, honestly. I saw like his appearance in the live action, which wasn't, you know, a ton of presence, but, you know, I knew he was there. And I auditioned for the first round of characters, because they did it in a couple rounds. They did like the first initial round of characters, then did the second batch of them. And I think in the first one, I can't really remember, but I think I auditioned for Professor X. I think it was one of the things I sent out an audition for. I'm really glad that Ross got it because he's incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like Professor X and like one or two other ones that I thought, I think I can do this one fine, and then didn't hear anything for, you know, a month and a half, and I was like, okay, well, that's great. X-Men is going to happen, and I'm really excited, but I won't be part of it. You know, I just kind of let it go. And then I got a second email a little bit later that had the same code name on it, and I was like, oh, this is more stuff, but okay. And then I saw Bishop in there, but for him, Boris was the code name for him, so it's like a really bizarre
Boris.
And yeah, I know, can you imagine? It's just and so I saw that and I was like, oh no, this is X-Men again. Okay. And so I did my due diligence to research Philip Aiken, who's the original voice of Bishop, and kind of get a feel for the character and figure out what he was doing, looked up clips on YouTube and all that. Thank goodness we live in the age that we could do that. And then I sort of gave it my own spin and sent it off, and so it was a blind audition, like anything else in my batch of, you know, things I'm trying out for, you know. And then about a month after that, I got an email in a session for the game Starfield, which I did a voice of one of the main companions in that. I was recording for that session. That's when I got the email that, like, they want to bring you in for this. I was like, great. Who do I can't say anything. And so it was all parts wonderful and pressure filled to a certain degree, and all these things like just happen at once, because this is not something that people take lightly. And as I've been going through the process of recording the show, and especially with the response, I've started to feel like, oh no, we are carrying a responsibility. We are
Right.
filling out what Uncle Ben has said to us all. And so but it became something bigger than I even expected, especially when the show actually came out, because I started recording in early 2022.
Right,
so
right.
I had to shut up for 2 Comic-Cons and multiple other shows coming out that I
It would have killed me.
Yeah. Oh, well, here, I'll tell you the story that I actually I don't think I've told this story yet, but the thing that really was just killer for me was I was working for my really good friend, Harley, works for this company called Boom Studios, which produces incredible comic books, like Berserker, the Keanu Reeves one, and Something is Killing the Children, and all these amazing stories. So she brought me in to work for this booth at Comic-Con in 2023, last year at San Diego. And it was great, and I had a really good time, and I got to, got a free room at the Hilton. I got to pass at the con. It was all really, I was spoiled. It was great. Met a lot of friends. The thing that was hard though was I knew that X-Men was happening, and I knew that it was coming, and I knew that I was in it, and I knew I couldn't say anything. And so, but the most hilariously frustrating thing was 20 feet to the right of that booth was the massive Marvel booth with all of the cool panelists and this whole line of X-Men apparel. And I was like, and I can't do anything about it. I just have to
no.
And then also, in addition to that, across the floor in the Hasbro section, they just premiered the Hasbro action figures of X-Men 97, and Bishop was in there.
Yeah.
And I just had to walk by and be like, this is amazing. I just look like a weirdo just walking past this glass case a million times and nobody knows why. But so it was the anticipation of it was very high at that point. And then also earlier, I think maybe in that Comic-Con, maybe another one, but they revealed the character designs for the first time. And I hadn't seen Bishop in full view, and the first time I saw him, that was a cool moment because I was like, oh no, this is real. This is happening. I didn't get replaced. I'm still doing the show. And so having all of that come and knowing that there was already fan anticipation was amazing. But yeah, that was just a fun moment for me to like not be able to say anything and have it basically like surround me during that point.
Oh, I can't imagine all of it hitting you at once. Just the realization of it.
Yeah,
man.
Yeah. Anyway, I keep going off on these weird threads, but
good.
No, it's fantastic.
No, you actually answered a few of our questions about the audition process and things like that.
Yeah.
But you talked about it being kind of stepping into the legacy of the show and how the responsibility of that. So I want to know, like, what did it feel like to receive that first script for the show and start recording?
It was pretty emotional, honestly. Yeah. I actually kept when I got the script, I got, the first one, and I think it was the title of the first one, To Me, My X-Men, on it, had my name and the watermark across, so that was already cool. I was like, this is an official script with my name on it. I still can't believe it. But the thing that really set it up that I've read over and over again is the creators and the writers, which the creators of the show I give full credit to. I went to a party that one of our producers, Sean, had at his house with all of the people that aren't on the acting side of it, like the production team and the people that are in animation and the compositors, all that stuff, and just seeing the wealth of talent, I was like, you guys are why the show is amazing. So one of the things that was great is they created this page that was before the script actually started, and it was an amazing description of what the show was going to be. This is, early 2022, where it said, like, welcome back to 1997, where it's a time of beepers and all this stuff, and we're setting up the melodramatic kind of soap opera-ish tone, but we're elevating it into a way that makes sense with, the story that we're trying to tell with these characters. And the thing that really got me emotionally was they had this preamble, and this is just in our script, they had this preamble with that text, and then it said, and with all that said, previously on X-Men, and then set up the first episode, and then the script started. And I framed that, and that's above my desk now as like my memento of like, I've privileged to be part of something so amazingly impactful. And so that page will probably stay framed. It'll stay in my various offices in my life or various recording studios. But like, it really felt like once I read that, I was like, oh, here we go. This is the big one. This is important. We got to do this right. So it has felt and continues to feel just humbling and exciting all at once, continuously. That feeling has never gone away.
Well, with the success of the show, I mean, they're saying the numbers are some of the highest Disney Plus has ever had.
Yeah,
and the viewership, like, wow, and it's highly on IMDb. It's got an average rating of 8.9 or 9.5 or something like that. Like, it's crazy.
I know. I put on my Instagram story that it is currently at this moment the highest rated Marvel project ever done. Like, it beat Endgame, and it beat No Way Home, and it's so crazy. And the kindness that I've received from fans and my friends has been the biggest reward, I think, because that's the reason why things go where they don't, is the fan response and the people that are watching, and the fact that they're on board is like, okay, cool. We did it. We're just going to have to keep making sure that we maintain this bar. But I think we can. I mean, the people that we have supporting us are unmatched. So,
well, you guys got picked up for 2 more seasons, so that's fantastic news, right? But
we're having a lot of fun.
I mean, just the success of the show tells you how hungry the fans are for more X-Men.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Like, it's time. It is time.
Oh, yeah. So definitely. I mean, I remember I saw Cal Dodd in an interview said, I hope there's a feature film. And I'm like, that'd be cool. Let's do that.
Yeah.
But
get some more animated feature films. Get the feature films. Get all the X-Men. That's what I want.
Yes. Yes, I know. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Just nonstop. Well, sort of along the line of what you've been talking about, what does it feel like to bring Bishop to life in this new era of superheroes? Because he's now getting a lot more spotlight than he ever did. Because like you said, when you got introduced to him, when I got introduced to him, I didn't know a lot about him. This show and the original kind of introduced me to Bishop for the first time. So what is it like to bring him to life now with superheroes so popular?
It's very such a good question also. I really enjoy the challenge of taking on something like that in this world especially, but also the fact that I get to kind of put my own spin on it at this point is interesting, because Bishop's story hasn't really been, other than the comic books of course, hasn't been told super extensively. So I kind of like that idea of a character that is given a new light and a new presence. So that's exciting for me. The other thing that I really enjoy about it is with the current conversation surrounding representation and actors and superheroes of different backgrounds and things. Yeah. And I've talked about this before. It was an interesting parallel that I began to draw with myself as a black actor, but also with Bishop specifically, because and this is something I just figured out, like a month or two ago. After recording everything, I was like, oh, I understand more now. The fact that Bishop is literally a man out of time is a very personal idea to me, because I'm a biracial person. I'm half black, half white. And so by definition, I fit in no category, completely. I'm in between and kind of skirting through and around different, communities and ways of feeling and identity. And it's a constant battle for me, because it's something that I never really will settle on. It's something that's kind of my Achilles heel in life, is feeling like I don't fit in a lot of places.
Right.
And it might be rooted, I feel like it's rooted a lot in that, and by default, not fitting in one or the other. And so to play a character that simultaneously is extremely powerful, knows what he wants, and has a very intense he has a lot of intention in what he's trying to get done, based off of his own morals and everything, and also trying to balance multiple timelines by doing it. I was like, well, this guy doesn't really have a home either. He does not really settled anywhere. And you sort of see that reflected in his, I think, in my interpretation, in his feeling and in his story. It's like he's trying to do the best that he can, given the fact that there's not really one place that he belongs. And to have that undercurrent that is not even reflected in necessarily the writing of the show or the arc of the character, but that connection to him has become important. On top of which, playing a black character is really important to me, because it's something that I didn't really give a lot of credit to when I was growing up, because it's not something that I saw a whole lot. So I think in that way, being a superhero of color is really a gift to me. Another way that I've thought about it with Bishop specifically is his power. If you're going to take it from the black perspective, and historically what has happened with black people, getting hit over and over again with all these things and this trauma and this, all these things.
Yeah.
I love that Bishop's power is he gets hit with all of this stuff and he repels it back with exactly the same force. In my mind, that's allegorical to the black experience. To me, that's what I feel.
Yeah.
And so I take all of that, sometimes rage or power or intensity, and think he's using it for a purpose of good. And I really like that about him. And so that's sort of my angle on it. And so taking Bishop into this, however, and also, all the things that he's been doing, and the ways that he's kind of imbued, because he's not, he does kind of float in and out of this storyline, but I sort of like that kind of man of mystery vibe about him as well. So there's a lot of elements of why I like taking him into this new era, and the reasons why I think it's cool. So I think that got to your point, I hope.
That was actually a beautiful answer. I mean, I love how you relate to the character of him absorbing the energy and be able to give back what's thrown at him.
Yeah,
you worded that perfectly. I can't even spit it back out at you like that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Perfect answer. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, when you talk about like the X-Men in general as a storyline, and why I feel like probably a lot of people really want to see X-Men stories and relate to those characters a lot. I mean, there's many stories out there where people can really find both the universal message, but also those really intrinsic kind of personal ones too.
Right.
And I think you just said that with Bishop perfectly, but a lot of different communities, for the allegory of fighting back against the oppression, against all of
Yes.
these different things that are happening.
Yeah.
Like for me, like I'm bisexual, so I'm in the
Yeah.
queer community, and like I
Right,
find that's
right.
probably why I was drawn to the X-Men really early before we even had the language of necessarily knowing what this was.
Yeah.
So I just love hearing people's personal connections to the characters and the storylines and things of that nature too. So thank you for sharing that with
Oh
us.
yeah, and just thank you for saying that, because it's so powerful and so great to hear that from you and from other people. Like, because that's the power of this group of people. These X-Men. I mean, it's so that's also part of it too. Is just seeing what people get from it on all spectrums of everything. It's awesome.
Well, I mean, that's always been the underlining story and theme to X-Men is these are different people. Can we just accept them? Like, why are we calling them mutants? They're just people with abilities. Let's accept them.
Exactly.
I mean, that's been their battle for 50 years, right?
Forever.
So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think of talking about kind of being with Bishop and relating to that. I know at the premiere at the El Capitan in Hollywood Boulevard, you actually kind of dressed up as Bishop for that.
Yes.
And I know that there was all the cast and creators there, and a ton of fans were there who were dressed up and had cosplay guests and things of that nature. So what was that experience like to see those first 3 episodes kind of live in the community?
It was so cool. Man, I don't think that there's any better way to watch a show. Like,
oh man.
I mean, first of all, the fact that Disney took the time to make an event out of it like that, so unexpected the way that they had it all happen. I did not think that there would be a premiere. I did not think that they would set up something like that. And so to have that, to have the foresight by Marvel and Disney to bring it to that level of public interaction was so cool, because I was like, well, that's reserved for that's for the movies and that's for the live action TV shows. So like the fact that I showed up and there was a line and there was the marquee had our show name on it, and we got inside and they had the Magneto's cereal and Hot Pockets and popcorn and to meet the I think 4 things when I think about that premiere. One, being amongst the people that I love, which are these fans and the nerds, and also dressing up as the character that I voiced, it was just so cool to have that moment, because I was like, this is never going to happen again. I got to go for it. So I did it, and it was super fun. 2 was seeing it in that size and that scope, because the El Capitan Theater is it's a gorgeous venue. Disney's had it forever, and I know some of the history of that. The first movie that premiered there was The Rocketeer, when that movie premiered.
Oh yeah.
And all the Disney projects since then. But to see it on that screen and to hear the theme song in that speaker system with that volume and bass, it was like, and the theater holds 1,000 people, so like all 1,000 people in there just screaming their heads off. It was like, and we get to be the ones that did it, and so that was cool. It was also kind of fun to see the slow realization of who we all were, because like some of my friends showed up and they're like, hey, it's good to see you, and then they would learn I voiced Bishop and they're like, what? They had no idea. And so that was great. The third thing was getting to meet the cast for the first time, essentially, because a lot of us had been recording isolation wise.
That's what we were wondering. Okay, great.
Yeah, so for the majority of this stuff, and this is kind of a general thing that I've experienced, at least in my career. I know, it's oscillated in different time periods, but generally we are recording by ourselves with nobody else but the director and our beautiful director, Meredith Lane, who's a force to be reckoned with, and all the other directors as well that have come in to help us out. The whole team is just so great. But we're alone, essentially. And so getting to meet the people that you've had scenes with, or the things that you've done, or like the part where Bishop and Cyclops are shooting in the Hell episode when they're shooting the demons and all that. And they look at each other and say, "You're welcome" to each other. I didn't know that they were talking to each other till I saw the episode. I was like, oh, that's what that was.
Oh.
And so to see those moments of how everything connected, and then to meet the people that did it, was so phenomenal. And the cast is such a great family. We're all in it. We all text each other and we all catch up on what each other is doing, which is really great.
Yeah.
And so that was cool. The core memory, though, I think, of this whole experience, to bring it back to my childhood, was, first of all, sitting in the theater watching the thing and having the theme song and all that. But my mom and my brother and one of my best friends in voiceover were there with me, and seeing the moment where my mom got to see the episode and like look at me and then watch the episode. And it's this, to me, it was this full circle of like, look at what it's kind of like a look at what I did, like, look, mom, no hands kind of thing. It's like, look at what I did.
Yeah.
And starting from this very small action of imitating voices to then getting to take her to a Hollywood premiere for a show that I was in that meant something to people, that was a big deal for me. So that I'll carry that for a long time.
That's a memory you'll have together for the rest of your life.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Oh, man. So you mentioned that you guys all recorded separately. So I was curious, like, how difficult is that to get the right emotion when you're either reacting to what one of the other characters is saying, or you have to initiate an emotional response and hope that they're going to react to you properly? Like, that's got to be a little difficult.
It is. It gets, honestly, it gets easier with time, just because that is something that's required of every voice actor in animation. A lot of the time, there's not a lot of external support that you have for like how the characters will sound and feel and all that. So you have to create that. But the key is having an incredible creative team. Yeah. And I've just mentioned the directors, that are there in the room, and the creative people that are behind the scenes in the Zoom watching. They're giving notes and getting the information to you. So as the actor, it becomes easier because you're giving what you can. You get the space to create the moment how you see it. And if there are any tweaks, they'll just suggest another way, or they'll suggest a different thing. Or can you try a couple of ways this direction? I remember in, I think it's out there now, when Matthew and Ross were talking about the final scene in the last episode where Professor X and Magneto are inside of Magneto's head and there's the water and everything. Yeah. They said that they recorded that scene like 6 or 7 different times in different ways with different emotions, because there was they wanted to make sure they covered all their bases. And so as an actor, it's cool because it's like, nothing feels like you're making a mistake. And that frees you a little bit because you're able to give your own instinctual performance and then get directed one way or the other, but it never is like, oh, well, that sucked, do it again. It's never like that. And so that's a huge percentage of it. And the other percentage of it is just having the imagination to, it's what you said earlier. It's about not forgetting to play. And that's something that I have to remind myself of all the time, is because, and this is an amazing analogy that Richard Horvitz, the voice of Zim and Vader Zim and Billy and Mandy, said. He's like, you got to remember that at one point in our life, we were kids in a sandbox playing with dragons and castles, and that world existed. And your mom would say, time for dinner. You'd break away and say, okay, cool, I'll be there. And you'd be back in that world, and nothing else really mattered, and it was all real. It's like, that's the thing that you just have to carry into your adult performance. You have to remember that play and that full realization of that world is what you have to just maintain. And it gets harder when you get older because your reality sets in. You get older, the world becomes what it becomes for you. And so it's creating that and letting everything else kind of, and there's vulnerability to it, and there's some nervousness, probably because kind of letting go and letting yourself just fall into a moment completely immersed without any sort of walls is difficult the older you get. As kids, it's easy because you're just playing, but as adults, you have more rules and there's more structure. So letting go and just being free is the key to it, and that's how you get those moments. But that's what I love about this job, is sometimes these are the only moments in my day-to-day life where I do get to let go and just be completely free with no holds barred, and that's where the fun begins. And then I start to remember, like, oh no, I should bring that into my real life. I'm still me. I can still do that, but that's how those elements, I believe, are what make it happen, to create the emotional moments without anybody else there.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, I mean, now that we know we got season 2, you guys have mostly recorded season 2, but season 3, with the pandemic being done, are you able to get into booths together, or at least across from each other now?
I haven't really experienced that. It's just, and I don't know why it is that way, why it's maintained. There must be some, there's a method to the madness, I believe. And I don't know if it's just logistically it's more easy to get that. I mean, I have to believe that it might be something on that end, just because I know logistically it's much easier to get one person in at this time at this date versus 7 people that are all actors doing their own thing. Like, can everybody get together on this one specific Wednesday afternoon? And yet there's a joy to that I would really like to experience, because I've watched the group records of like Family Guy and Futurama. There was one, I forget what show it was. Goof Troop, I think. Jim Cummings put out a video of like a Goof Troop session. Like, look at all these amazing people. I want to be in the room like that. So, I think for right now, that seems to be mostly the trend, is one at a time for whatever reason. If that changes, that'd be awesome. I don't know if it will or not. I'm here to just experience whatever. I'm here to take the jobs that they give me. So I hope that happens, because when I have had the experience of being in a room with multiple people, it's so fun. It's yeah.
Oh, I bet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned the moment already with Cyclops and Bishop in the Fire Made Flesh, but is that, now that all of season 1 is out, is that your favorite moment? Do you have a different favorite Bishop moment?
Oh man, I think I have 2 now. One, Time for an Exorcism Punks was like the coolest thing ever. Getting to say that, and then that part where he shoots the energy, that whole scream, I did that in one breath, so that was really fun. I just screamed my face off for that. Oh, wow. That was cool. And then the other moment that I love, just because I recorded, this moment it felt like a fever dream, because I know I did it, but I barely remembered what it felt like. And I talked to AJ about this, because I was like, do you remember it? And he's like, yeah, kind of. It was a long time ago, so I had no idea how the hell I even said it when it came out. But it was the same when Bishop comes back at the end of the season and says, we're friends, but, not yet. That whole scene that he has with Forge. I was like, oh, this is so cool. I didn't realize it was this part. And then the also added surprise and memory of being the voice of King T'Chaka as one of the cameos.
Right.
So that was pretty neat. But yeah, so those 2, 2.5 moments, I think, are my favorites from my characters. But, so many that were just in the show in general that I loved.
Well, on that point, we were talking on our podcast, like, it seemed like every episode, a different character had their chance to shine and get their quote-unquote moment, their hero moment. And we already talked about, like, that episode 3, Fire Made Flesh, when Bishop turns to Cyclops and says, hit me. And Cyclops just unleashes everything he's got into your back and superpowers you up. And then you unleash these, like, pink laser cannon beams, something out of sci-fi. It just incinerates all the demons. Like, that was Bishop's moment. And my jaw was just on the floor. Like, whoa.
Oh, yeah.
That was so cool.
It was so cool. And Rob Paulson has this great quote where he says, I don't write them and I don't draw them, I'm just a singer. And I definitely felt that in this. I was like, I did the sound effect, but man, the animation and the sound effects and the music is just making me look so cool right now. So, and speaking of the music, I mean,
it's beautiful.
The score, and I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but just something I shared with the group. The Newton brothers are, I want to meet them, because they just elevated the show in just incredible ways. The Hollywood Reporter just put out a release that there's a 2 LP vinyl of the soundtrack coming out in September that you can pre-order right now.
Whoa.
It's not, I promise I do not work for, I mean, I do work for Marvel, but this is a plug that generally is from a fan of, like, the soundtrack is coming to vinyl and I can't wait to get a copy, and there are all of us on it. And
definitely.
So anyway,
very cool.
So all of those elements made that moment super cool. But thank you for pointing that out, because that was a very cool hero moment.
Oh, it was. It was such a cool moment. And then continuing to nerd out about Bishop, like, his power, like we talked about, absorbing energy and being able to redirect it, it's never really been stated what the limits are for it. So for you, I want to know, since you're voicing the character, how far do you think he can push it? Like, do you think he could absorb a blast of a nuke, say, if a nuke hit him? Could he absorb that and then redirect it? Because that'd be pretty friggin' scary.
I don't really know, but I'm excited to see what the limit. This is a question I haven't been posed yet, because it's not something I thought about, but I want to believe that there is a much higher limit than we're aware of that Bishop can take on and then reflect. Like, if I think a really cool moment is if we record an episode and one of the Sentinels says Omega level threat about Bishop, that would be really. I would love to. I would love to know what that is, because a nuke would be the thing. It's like if you drop a nuclear bomb on his back and he. So, but who knows? I'm very excited to see what could happen. But as of right now, I don't think we've seen really where he could take the limit of absorbing and pushing things out.
I mean, what Cyclops did in that scene, that's got to be pretty high powered.
For sure. Yeah.
So if he can go beyond that, watch out. Yeah,
totally.
For sure.
Yeah. I want to see a Storm and Bishop to Omega level.
Yes.
That's what I want to see.
Which Allison Seeley Smith is like the kindest human being ever. I haven't met her in person yet, but I will at San Diego this year, and so I'm excited.
Nice.
I just met her actually at the Calgary Comic-Con. Yeah.
How was that?
She's beautiful. She's a wonderful lady. Just listening to her voice face to face, she already is Storm.
I know, right? She's just already there. Yeah,
she's already there. She's just so elegant and graceful. I love getting to chat with her for a couple minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
For sure. Another Bishop question here. If you were writing his story or a story for Bishop, where would you like to take the character? Is there something that you'd like to see him accomplish or have more growth in? Since we're all very much getting to know him. Now, so.
Yeah. If I were writing him, I would want to see the progression of his existence in his world from being. I want to see. I mean, it sounds horrible, but I'm very curious. But I want to see when the branding happened for him. When was he branded with the M on his face? How did that happen? How did he reconcile that idea? What was it like, again, coming from the Black experience, growing up as a mutant of color? Because that hasn't really been addressed as far as like something that's similar to the human world. I mean, we've seen it with the mutants that are like above ground and below ground. With the
Morlocks.
With the Morlocks, exactly.
Yeah.
But just as a person who has personally had those experiences and still am growing up, I would love to see what that was like. What was his family like? Who did he run away from? Like what went on? There's just a lot of mystery to him. So I would love to see the moment of genesis of his existence to realizing his powers to then figuring out what he had to do to follow the dream that he never got to see fulfilled in his timeline to when the brand happened. Just the moment of creation of Bishop. Because I feel like there was a moment before and a moment after he became who Bishop is.
Yeah.
I would want to see that story.
I like that idea. Because a lot of the X-Men have had sort of origin stories told and visualized, so I think you're right. Bishop needs his shot.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Going back to some of like your favorite moments and stuff, I love the exorcism part 2 in terms of action and just seeing the full power. A kind of a smaller like comic book nerd side for me is in that last episode when you said the conversation with Forge, like we're friends but not yet, but you also get to say Daniel, which is Forge's real name.
Yeah.
But that has never been established within any X-Men media up until you said it in the show. So you kind of have that like that history of being able to be like, you're the first one who gets to name Forge.
I didn't even think about that. Thank you. I love learning new things. I feel like I like when people know more than I do.
Yeah, he's never been. He's only been called
awesome.
Forge in the comics and any of the other media he's been in. So that was the first time we got his actual name.
Wow. Okay. Cool. Thank you for that. I'm gonna take that to the bank. That's awesome.
Damn right.
There you go.
Abby is our encyclopedia. I'm the super fan. She's encyclopedia. So that's how we
I love the mix.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So we're getting a little close to the end of our time. So we have just a few more questions here.
Yeah.
And then we'll wrap it up. But a fun one that I kind of wanted to bounce off since we're on a podcast right now,
Sure.
and if we talk with any more else, I want to kind of ask it as a series. But if Bishop had a podcast, what would it be about?
Oh, wow. I'm going to steal this from an Instagram user called Pucker Ducky, who's made a bunch of memes about Bishop being gone. And there's one that said, that moment when you go on a work trip and come back a single father, and it's him carrying through. And so I think if Bishop had a podcast just in this moment, I think it would be about parenting, being a single parent to a kid that you don't, kind of a parenting one, but also like kind of if you're like a big brother or big sister taking on a child, that kind of thing. I think that'd definitely be one. And maybe, I don't know, maybe one about religion, just given his name, Bishop and all that, and all these, Catholic. But yeah, I think a single parenting one would be fun.
Single parenting. Yes, that first episode is how to lose your coworker's kid in the timeline.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I got so much flack from friends. They're like, "Where were you?" I'm like, "I don't know.
I didn't write it.
It wasn't me."
Yeah.
And they didn't actually even really give us that answer. Like, what did he land at a different time period? Did he just land at a different part of the world? Like, what happened to him in that moment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is still a mystery.
Yeah.
Time will tell, I guess.
Time will tell.
Yeah.
So, is there another character currently on the team that you would like to have some time with, like have a big scene, a big moment, like your Cyclops moment? Is there another character you'd like to see team up with?
Oh, gosh. That's a really good question. I don't think that just kind of going off the cuff. It doesn't. I feel like in my own vision of the show, it feels like the most opposite, like people, the people that spend the least time together. I think certainly Bishop and Wolverine. I don't really think ever had any conversation. I would love to see what the two of them would talk about.
Right.
Just because Wolverine's. Okay, well, actually, two of them actually just thought about it right now. So Wolverine, because of their shared experience, I think, of having a before and after moment of like just completely changing from a version of you to the version you are now because of a cataclysmic event in your life. Wolverine with the adamantium and Bishop with the branding. But taking the branding to like an extra level, I would love to have Magneto and Bishop have a conversation about being isolated as a people and what that means. Because we all know about Magneto's connection to all of the events with the Holocaust and all of those things, and that
right.
So just some large Earth event that shaped who they were. I think Bishop would have. I think they would have a kinship with those moments. I would love to see a conversation with the two of them about that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I would say in this moment. That could change, but that's what I'm thinking of right now. Yeah.
Well, there's one moment I'll tell you about. In my research, there's something that I never witnessed, but apparently in one of the comic book stories, you can see I'm a Rogue fan, right?
Yes, I was just going to say the mic is on point.
Yes. There's a story where Rogue is absorbing somebody else's power and it's becoming too much for her. And Bishop actually steps in and tries to absorb it from her to help her depower a little bit, to help her, because it's like saving her life. She's out of control, taking on too much. So he kind of acts as like a secondary power absorber, and he takes some of it away from her. That would be something I would love to see visualized.
Oh, I would love to see that. Yeah. That's really cool. Yeah. I got to read that. That's great.
I'll find out where I got it from, and I'll send it to Abby, and she can forward it to you. And then
okay, great. Yeah, I'd love to read that story.
Yeah, it seems like. Do you know that one, Abby? Know where that came from?
Was that from the prequel comic actually for '97 when she's absorbing Sienna Blaze?
I haven't read it. It was just I just saw it as a story, but yeah, cool. Okay, we'll find it.
We'll find it.
Cool. Thank you.
Anywhere where people can find you that you would like to connect with and see what you're up to, how they can catch up to you, anything you want to plug.
Yeah, so I mean, you can see me on Instagram and X as IRS Voices, and then Facebook Isaac Robinson Smith.
Okay.
Pretty easy. I post all my stuff there, and it's mostly some stuff in life and some things that I'm doing, but also things that I'm part of and projects that I'm in that I'll talk about and promote and everything. So that's the best way to find out what I'm doing.
Cool. We'll share all the links when we release the episode too, for sure. Yeah. Well, we just want to thank you so much for coming on Tomorrow's Legends, talking to us about Bishop and X-Men and all of your career and life so far. We appreciate it so much.
Oh, thanks for letting me ramble for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Fan to fan. And I think it's fun. You're talking about, again, going back to kind of the legacy and stepping into kind of different periods of time for this. So with having the original and that, I think between the three of us, we are 3 different generations of kind of X-Men fans. So I was not alive when the original was coming out. So I kind of came to it later through the comics and everything. But I know, Martin's was watching it probably live and was reading the comics in the 80s
I
off
just
the
turned
shelf.
50, Isaac, so.
No, nice.
So I think it's just really cool to see how much these cast of characters, these storylines within X-Men, within the Marvel Comics, is just reaching kind of across generations and across different boundaries like this to really bring us all together. And I think it's really cool, and being able to talk to you as part of that legacy has been great today.
Well, thank you guys for creating the opportunity for us to do this. I feel like it keeps it alive in a way that's really positive.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. No, for sure. So thank you so much. We cannot wait till season 2 comes out. We're looking forward to
me too.
More X-Men and hopefully more Bishop. I want to dive into him because after watching this season and really getting to see what he's capable of, I am so invested and want to learn more.
Good.
And same with what you said. Like, what's his story? What happened to him? Why is he here? Just everything. I think there's a lot. There's a lot there to unpack that we need to learn.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're excited. Yeah. I will let you know what I know as I know it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Sounds great. All right. Well, thank you once again to Mr. Isaac Robinson Smith for coming on the show on Tomorrow's Legends to discuss all things X-Men 97 and Bishop. It was fantastic talking to you today. And good luck in the future. We cannot wait to come back.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking some time to come on the show.
Oh, it was really fun. Thank you.
We'll be tuning into not only season 2 of X-Men, but hopefully all the other projects that you get to work on.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Tomorrow's Legends is not affiliated with CBS, Warner Brothers, HBO, or the CW. We're a fan-made podcast for entertainment purposes only and are part of the Cybercast Network. Be sure to check out our partner shows, The Mandalore and Dive into DC, covering your favorite Star Wars and DC Comics properties. Thanks for listening.